then somebody told me that the volume wasn't turned on. So I'm back to do it again. So today I want to talk to you all about something that's been going on in my life lately that I have been feeling convicted about, that I thought might be something that would resonate with you as well. And so I've started recently in my life paying attention to what God has done. And what happened was really not what you would think. It's not what I would have thought either. And what happened is that when I started paying attention to all of the things that God had done, to all of the prayers that He'd answered in my life, to all of the desires of my heart that He had given to me, I realized how discontented I was with so many of the things that He's done, with so many of the gifts that He's given me. I'm just going to make sure that, okay, now I'm here. So I checked it out on my computer, so I think you should be able to hear me this time. But I just wonder if that's something that you might resonate with as well, that if you actually stop to take a look at your life, maybe you're feeling really discouraged and you're just lacking that contentedness in so many areas of your life. I know I can be really like that. You're unhappy with so many things. Like, you look at your life and it's just like, nothing feels good enough. Nothing feels like what you wanted. Everything feels discouraging. Everything feels frustrating. But then if you look at what God has done, He's probably, like He has for me, answered so many of your prayers. And when I started to look at all of the things that God has done, and I started reading my Bible in this regard, and I looked at Psalm 126 verse 3 that says, "The Lord has done great things for us, and we are filled with joy." And I was like, but I'm not filled with joy about so many of these great things that He has given me. And so I really started to recognize in myself that I needed to do a heart check, because, here's just a couple examples of things that I thought of right away that you might be like me. And these aren't all things that I'm discontented with in my life, but just as a list or as an example, like, I asked God for a godly husband. Maybe you did too. And He provided one. So are you complaining about it? Are you unhappy with your relationship? Are you discontent with the man that God provided for you? Like, it's so easy to get in that headspace, right? And so it's like, God, see what God has done, pay attention to what God has done, and then realize that you're unhappy with it. And that doesn't mean that relationships don't go through seasons and ups and downs and hard times. But when we choose to focus on all of the things we don't like about our husbands, well, that doesn't help our relationships, does it? I know it doesn't help mine. Versus when we choose to be thankful and encourage them and uplift them and love them the best way that we can, that changes the nature of a relationship very quickly. I can tell you that from my own experience, right? Here's another one. You asked God for children, and maybe He provided them, maybe He didn't, right? These are just examples. And then you're just busy complaining and unhappy with your life, and your kids are driving you crazy. And for me, sometimes I feel like, I'm just stuck at home, and my life is like this weird combination of incredibly overstimulating and so boring all at the same time that I'm so bored and discontent. But God gave me these beautiful blessings that I prayed for. So I've started paying attention to all these things that God has done for me, and I'm recognizing that my heart needs a heart check. Whoa, I need to turn things around there, right? And again, there's disclaimers to all these things. That doesn't mean that there's not frustrating days. It doesn't mean that you can't talk about it or struggle with things. But where is your heart? What is the posture of your heart towards all of the amazing things that God has done for us? Colossians tells us that God has given us immeasurably more than we could ever ask or imagine. And so when I think about that, I'm like, whoa, has He ever? And yet here I am, discontent, complaining, and unhappy. What the heck? Come on, Casey, get it together here, right? Here's another few examples that I thought of. I asked God to provide for my needs. You know what? He did. He does. Every day I have a roof over my head. I live in a beautiful country. We have enough food to eat. We can pay our bills. And yet here I am complaining and feeling like it's still not enough. I never have enough. I don't have enough money to go buy that. I don't have a house that looks like that person's. All of these things, right? But at the heart of it, I've started paying attention to what God has done. And God has done amazing things in my life. I asked God for a friend. He's provided people. And then I sit and complain and don't ask them or invite them to go do anything. I'm always striving. I don't know about you, but I am always striving for more and more and more. But it's never enough because it's about the condition of my heart. And so I've really just started paying attention to what God has done for me. And wow, like I am so blessed by a God who gives me abundantly more than I could ever seek or ask or imagine. And you are too. And again, that doesn't mean that our problems are instantly going to go away. It doesn't mean that there's not it means that there's still going to be issues in your relationships that you'll need to work on. It means you're still going to have children who needs to be disciplined, who need attention, who need, like, the frustrating parts of things don't go away, right? But Psalm 126 verse 3 tells us that the Lord has done great things for us and we are filled with joy. So I've been asking myself, and I'm asking you today, the Lord has done great things for you. Are you filled with joy? And so I've just really been feeling convicted about this lately because, I have been in this stage or state of mind lately where I just feel like I'm discontent. And I think I've always struggled with that. I know some people don't struggle with that the same way that I do. But in my head, it's always been this thing where I'm like, well, no, being content just means that you're complacent. But I continued looking through the Bible and kind of like digging deeper into this whole topic of like paying attention to what God has done for me. And 1 Timothy 6:6 tells us that godliness with contentment is great gain. And I think that right there like refutes my argument in my head that contentment equals complacency, because godliness with contentment is great gain. And godliness with contentment does not mean complacency, because when our hearts are surrendered to God and we are like living out God's purpose for us with contentment, there is nothing complacent about that, right? Like if we're doing what God's asking us to do, there is absolutely nothing complacent about that. But there is a contentment there. And so for me, I've been going, okay, I'm home right now with small kids, feeling this like crazy mix of intense overstimulation and overwhelm mixed with this intense boredom of like being at home and not knowing how to get through the days. And now I've started homeschooling and it's like adding more to that whole weird mix of feelings and emotions. But I have to remember that this is where I believe God has asked me to be right now. This is where I believe that God is asking me to put my energy into my home, into my kids, into my husband. And so godliness with contentment in that area of my life is great gain, right? And the thing I think that we have to remember is that when we start paying attention to what God has done, our problems don't instantly go away. We don't instantly find joy and peace. We don't instantly feel content. Our problems don't magically go away, but we can begin to find joy. We can begin to seek contentment. We can start looking at our problems as opportunities or as like ways that we can surrender our journey and our lives to God, because He's going to provide. Like, look at all the ways He's provided for you up till now, right? We can start to praise God for all of the blessings that He's given us. We can start thanking God for that husband that might be driving us crazy, right? We can start thanking God for the blessing of children that He's given us, whether or not they're driving us crazy and maybe they're in like an intensely difficult stage right now. Like, we can still thank God for them. We can still praise God for them. We can thank God for the people that He has put in our way. We can thank God for the way He has provided for all of our needs. And so, like, I'm asking you today, as I've been doing this myself, to start asking yourself, or to start paying attention to what God has done for you, and ask yourself, like Psalm 126 verse 3 says, see what the Lord has done and be filled with joy. Are you filled with joy at the things that God has done for you? Because if not, then you, like me, might need to do some work on the inside, right? and to start finding that godliness with contentment. And that is going to be great gain for you. And I think what we have to remember is that the secret that we have to learn about this is that finding contentment, looking at the things that God has done for us, is about thanksgiving and focusing on all the things that God has done for us in the midst of the struggle, in the midst of the hard time. And that doesn't mean that we're never going to have those negative feelings again, because we will. We're human. And I think that the devil works on us over time to keep us stuck, to keep us discouraged. And that's where we have to start focusing on what God has done. We have to start looking at the things that God has done for us and thanking him, because wow, that's really all I can say. Wow. When I stop to think about all the things that God has done for me, I am so blessed. And if you stop and look at all the things that God has done for you, you are going to find blessing upon blessing upon blessing. And so if you start to focus on that, I know that for you and for me, that it's going to start to change our hearts so that we are no longer discouraged, discontented, and unhappy people, but that we are women who can go out and be salt and light to the earth and further his kingdom. So thank you for being here with the second time around for me today. If you weren't here earlier, I did the whole thing, and then Michelle Gabriel came on and told me she couldn't hear me, and I had the microphone turned off on my phone where I'm recording on. So this is round 2. I'm choosing to think of it as God's provision and protection, that somehow the second one was supposed to be the one that you were hearing today, not the first one. Because if I didn't think about it like that, I could be very frustrated about the fact that I'm here doing the same video a second time. Anyways, it's all about our perspective. It's all about what we choose to focus on. And so ask yourself today, like, where's your heart at? Start focusing on paying attention to all of the things that God has done for you, and start being amazed, because he can do immeasurably more than all you can ask or imagine. Thank you for being here with me today. And until next time, remember that you are a beautiful woman chosen for greatness, and he has done great things for you. See you next time.